One day, quite by surprise, my father, Sam Tesch, invited me to go with him and three of his minister buddies, Ed Mickey, Gordon Spall, and George Higgins, to look at a piece of property that might be appropriate for a camp, the Moravian camp that they'd been talking about for years. I knew they'd been discussing it because as a kid, one of my favorite activities was to slip out of bed and sneak down the stairs about halfway and listen in on their conversations as they talked on a Sunday night after all the services were over and chatted about everything in the church and the world. One of their big topics of conversation was this Moravian youth camp. So, that being the case, one day, we hopped into the car, all five of us, and headed for the mountains to look at this property. A long drive later, we left the highway and took a deeply rutted dirt road up the mountain. I remember it as a scary ride because the road was so narrow and I didn't want us to meet anybody, and we didn't. Anyway, we got to the about where the camp road goes off the highway, what's that highway now, and parked the car. We got out and started on a scramble up a road to deeply rutted wagon tracks. And they were overhung on both sides with blackberry vines that grew out of this thicket on the sides of the road, a thicket that I was sure was absolutely full of vipers and poisonous things, none of which we saw, thank heaven. At last we came to an open space and we could see scraggly apple trees and a two-story wood cabin. Well, we began to hike around. We hiked for 2 or 3 or 4 hours, I don't know. It seemed like forever. The ground was really rough. It had been a farm, and parts of it had grown corn, and parts of it had grown trees, and all of it had grown weeds. After all that walking around, up and down, here and there, we finally climbed back into the car and headed home. I don't remember too much about the trip, except that I was bone tired and sleepy. I sat in the middle of the back seat and I listened to the fellows talking very excitedly about the ridge that would be a perfect playing field. Back in those days, it was the custom that the camp staff and played the M staff, what is now the M staff, in a baseball game. That was a high peak of every week. So a playing field would be a very important thing. They also talked about how lovely Second Valley was, wherever that was, and the other possibilities on the north face of the mountain, whichever face that was. Mostly they talked about the buildings, and should the cabins and the other buildings be on top of the mountain or in the woods down the side of the mountain. I vividly recall that George Higgins said they should not be on the top. The top of the mountain should be saved and left alone. As they chatted, I listened through a very hazy mind. And over in my mind, I said, in your dreams, fellows, in your dreams. The Moravian Church will never buy your dream of a camp and build it. Well, a few weeks later, I took a very long plane ride to the Bering Sea coastal plain, hopped in a boat, I went across a very wide river to the house that I would be living in for the next 5 years, working in the Moravian mission there in Bethel. After the 5 years, I went back in the boat and back across that river, climbed onto a plane, and came home. My father met me at the airport with a great big welcome home hug, of course, and almost immediately said, "Would you like to go up and see the camp?" I always choke up on that. We went up to the camp, and there it was, a pure gift for which I did not raise a single dollar or lift a finger, a gift to all of me, my mind and my body, and my heart and my soul. A gift I've enjoyed for many, many years and still enjoy from time to time. I have a deep, great debt of gratitude that, of course, cannot be paid to the saints still with us and those beyond who gave me that gift.